Are you ready to live stream?
I am. I understand that live streaming is something we do on YouTube.
This is a thing.
I've got a confession.
Okay.
This is a real life confession. The first one is I've never done live stream. Like, it's a YouTube. We're on the YouTube channel of ours, and people can it's just a live event, right?
That's what we're doing.
And we're here because we're hoping that possibly, amongst all the things we could talk about and the things we're passionate about, maybe someone out there is passionate about their experience, and maybe they want to share something or they have a question, right?
Yes, yeah, exactly. So live streaming, this is our first foray into this. Thanks anybody that's watching this live stream, and absolutely, if anybody's watching, if you have questions, if you want to get our opinion on hearing aids, on ears, on anything audiology related.
We'll see the question right here.
We are going to see questions. Yeah. We are happy to address them. We've got a few things we want to talk about, though. Yeah. And of course, as our first time, we'll work through some kinks. We'll work through some bugs.
This is kind of exciting.
Yes.
We talk about hearing devices, about hearing health principles, about different types of topics that involve the anatomy, the physiology of how it all works. We talk at length amongst our staff, our groups. We get to go to different places for training. Sometimes they're a little further, but usually they're pretty close to home, like Vegas or Salt Lake City.
Or they come to us right here in St. George, Utah.
We had one yesterday that was very meaningful at 8 a.m. But we get to talk about these themes all the time, and this is our time to kind of just chat for an hour. It's 1 hour is all.
Hey,
it's kind of hoping it would be 3 or 4 hours.
We can go forever.
Yeah, I'll have to make sure we're set up, but I'm excited.
Yes. And we've got a couple people here in studio with us. They might toss us some questions. Certainly, we're going to be looking online to see if there's any questions out there. Again, we've got some topics we want to talk about. Should we jump in?
Yeah, I'm really comfortable, so I'm good to go.
I've got some water.
You feeling good?
I've got some water. I've got the live chat up here, so I'll see if anybody's sending us some questions.
No one yet.
No, so maybe we should jump into what we want to talk about.
Yeah.
Because, we talk to a lot of people about ears. We do this every day. Most of the day, we're talking about hearing aids. Yeah. We're talking about ears. And we see a lot of people that are currently in hearing aids. And one question that they sometimes have is, when should I start thinking about upgrading technology? Is this like my iPhone where I should be doing this every single year, every time a model comes out? Or should I be riding this thing into the ground? Sometimes people will say to me, is this the only hearing aid I'm going to have my whole life?
Right.
So I thought that might be interesting to talk about.
It's a really good question. It's a question we get all the time. So the quick answer of, how often should I replace my hearing device? Unfortunately, they don't last forever. They're a little bit more like the electronic device that you have. I think the cell phone's a good example of this, that the cell phone will work for 10 years. The cell phone will go, and you can replace parts and do things. But the honest truth about electronics that we use daily that are in various environments, whether it's we're jogging or walking or we're putting it in and out of our pocket or in and out of an ear canal or something, I think the cell phone's a really, really good example of you can usually go about 4 to 6 years with not too much drama before you might just say, I think I just need a new phone. And in this case, it would be, I think I want a new hearing device because this microphone keeps going out, or why does my device sometimes make these weird static sounds? Because there's obviously an issue with the motherboard circuit that's driving everything, kind of the brains of the device. It's funny how the device can just start to do funny things, and you would think, can't we just fix it?
Yeah, can't we just? And sometimes we can, right?
Can we just send it in and fix it, right?
Usually, hearing aids come with warranties. I actually had a patient just this morning talking about hearing aids are expensive. How long is the warranty on this thing? If I'm investing in this thing, how long is this thing going to last? And I think you should expect the hearing aid to last several years. And usually hearing aids come with a warranty that does allow you, if there is a problem, you don't have to buy a new one necessarily. If it's just a year old, you can usually send it to the factory or have it fixed at your audiologist. So yeah, they can be fixed, but there comes a time when the hearing device maybe is fading a little bit.
Right.
Maybe there's new technology that's out there. Maybe it's been 4 years. Maybe it's been 5 years.
Yep.
And I think for my patients, that's a really common theme. Right in that 4 to 6 years, that's when the hearing aids start to have some problems. They start to be a little slower.
Right.
The patient feels like maybe they're coming into our office too much. You know, it keeps breaking. It keeps having problems.
Yep.
Sometimes at that point, we start having the discussion of maybe we ought to start looking at some of this new stuff.
So just to piggyback on that, so make your life easier. So the convenience means you're going to spend money and get a new set. It makes your life more convenient, but it is an expense. But the expense of not doing your best as a result of the product failing or doing funny things in those most important listening environments can prove to be kind of expensive. And that's a life expense. Like, oh my goodness, I just missed that wedding completely, or the funeral, or the graduation, or we were all together at Thanksgiving and I didn't do my best. That's an expense that people feel, and it drives them in, usually about year 4 or 5. It's interesting too what do you think? Do our patients change? Do their needs change over a 5-year period?
Absolutely. And so, obviously as an audiologist, I try to keep an eye on the patient themselves. How are they changing? How is their hearing changing? And it's important that we do repeat testing to be able to keep an eye on that.
Right.
And as we're testing them and talking with them and visiting with them, we can also get a little bit of a window into cognitive decline and things of that nature. Right. And as our patients change and as their hearing aids fade, oftentimes we'll have that discussion of, I can tell you're not doing your best right now. I can tell maybe you're a little bit frustrated that you're not performing at your best. And maybe that's an opportunity to try something new. And I don't know about you, but I always try to make it really non-threatening. This should be truly, we're trying to help you perform your best. And so I like to just offer them, do you want to try something?
Yeah.
No obligation.
Take it for a week or two.
Take it for a week or two. Let's just see if we can get you doing better and if it's worth the expense to you.
Yeah, I think with the patient changing, even if it's just a little bit, so their performance and their ability to make sense of the world around them is just a little different over a 5-year period. And the fact that the technology usually advances enough, usually changes enough. Maybe it's a quicker processor. Maybe it's a device that has the ability to separate speech and noise just a little more to give a greater advantage in those most dynamic listening environments. So I just think that patients want to be as dynamic as possible. But it is true that often we'll have a patient who starts with hearing devices, and then 20 years later, they'll say something like, well, I used to be able to do this with my hearing devices. How come I can't do that anymore? And oftentimes it speaks to the idea that the patient has just changed that much. Luckily, the research shows, and even in our clinical experience, it's showing that people who get fit quickly or early, so when they first find out they have an issue and they're saying, okay, I better fix that, their outcomes are better. And it's not just that their performance and their outcomes are better immediately. That's nice. But what we're finding is that their outcomes and their performance can sustain for many, many years. Whereas the patients who find out they have a problem and then they choose not to be compatible, or I shouldn't say compatible, but compliant, and say, yeah, let's get some hearing health going. Let's get better. Let's fix this problem. If they put it off too long, those are the patients that I think they become more and more rigid, so they're not as flexible in those dynamic environments.
It's always best to treat things early, right?
Yeah.
I'd say for me, sign number 1, if you're feeling like I'm not hearing at my best. And honestly, it doesn't really matter how old the hearing aid is. If you're a hearing aid user and you're feeling like I'm just not performing as well as I'd like to,
right,
I would go to your audiologist. I would say I'm not hearing as well as I'd like to, and let them experiment with you a little bit. Let them see if there's better technology out that could help you. So I think for me, that's number 1 is if you're not feeling like you're doing your best, talk to your audiologist and see if there's something else you could try. Number 2, though, and it's kind of interesting, if your hearing device is more than 4 years old, sometimes people don't realize, because they're so used to what they have, that they could be doing better.
That's right.
I don't know. Do you ever see that?
Yeah. I see it in my own life.
Yeah, right.
You know, different things, different ideas, different technologies that I use around the house. But for sure, the devices, we wish they were bulletproof. We wish that they could output and communicate internally the way they should and produce an external sound that's quick and sharp and clean. But the truth is, between the microphones that pick sound up, the digital processor that has to quickly maneuver sound, manipulate sound to your best interest, and then output the sound down a wire and to a loudspeaker. Between the loudspeaker, the digital circuit, and the microphones, those are the three probably major components. One of those or two out of the three, I mean, by the time you get to that time frame, they just a little compromised. And so there's nothing like new. There's nothing that's better than that fresh new sound, not just because it's more capable, the hearing device got better, but just because it's new and everything's working the way it's intended, the way it's created.
The technology just gets better and better with these things.
Yeah.
And so I think what I was kind of getting at too is sometimes I'll even invite a patient that has hearing aids that are 5 or 6 years old to just try something new. And there's, again, no obligation, no commitment to this. But if we can significantly improve how you're doing, sometimes it's fun to try.
Yeah.
And so sometimes the patient comes to me and says, I'm not doing as well as I'd like to. And I say, well, let's try something new. Sometimes I invite them to say, hey, you know what? There's some really exciting stuff out, and I think you could really benefit from it.
Yeah.
And so, you know, would you humor me and try this out and see if this new tech makes a difference in your life?
Sometimes, too, the location you're going to for hearing health, it might be a doctor group like ours, or it could be a different group, but they may look at you and say, you know, you've gone from 88% in how you process sound, and now you're at 80%. And you may think, well, I just dropped 8%. That's no big deal. Well, it is a big deal, because if every 2 years you're dropping 4 to 8 to 10%, your next 10 years could be kind of bleak. Could kind of be kind of a dark outcome. It's something we want to try to avoid. And so getting the best technology. What's cool is we've done this so many times with individuals where they're wearing a device. It's in its 4th year, 5th year, 6th year. And we put the new devices on, and one of the first things they say is, oh my goodness, this sounds so much cleaner. Or, oh yeah, this is definitely sharper. It's fun. And we're in a quiet room. There's no noise. There's nothing. It's a simple, you wouldn't expect them to just notice a benefit in such a simple listening environment like one of our fitting rooms. But isn't that interesting that just even in a quiet room, they're like, this already sounds better.
Yeah, it's really fun actually when someone puts it on. You know, they're wearing a hearing aid that's helping them, and they're doing okay. And then you put on a new one, and they say, "Oh,
I've got more hope."
Okay,
yeah,
I can tell already. I'm doing better.
I'm ready for that dinner outing. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's fun to send them home. Say, go to dinner, go to church, go to your family gatherings, and then come back and tell me how it's performing. And yeah, if you're making a jump in technology of 4 to 5 years, it's usually significant.
Yeah. One thing that's interesting, and we'll just talk about, this might be a new topic. Are we ready?
We transitioning?
So related to this is there's different manufacturers. There's different hearing aid companies. And we can be very clear. The hearing aid companies that we can utilize and that are very, very effective, they all sound different. They are different. Like, they have different rationales. They have different intentions. They all have the same, I guess, intention in that they want to help you hear your very best and they want you to be healthy, but the sound quality is different. And so that's another really fun thing that we get to do. Is someone may try a device for a week or two, and then we say, there's another new device that I'm really liking. Sorry, I got something coming.
Really liking lunch too.
I'm really liking lunch, but I'm really liking, there's a product that we've seen some great benefit and patients are really enjoying. Would you like to try that one for a week or two? Now they're trying brand new technologies across different manufacturers, and I think it's really neat.
Yeah, that's one cool thing about what we do. And of course, every practice is going to be a little bit different. But at our practice, we try to stay pretty current on all of the major manufacturers. There's not very many of them. Mm-hmm. We try to stay as current as we can. And even though we try to stay as current as we can, we probably stay more current with some.
Yeah.
We might have a rep from one company that's more proactive in coming and training us than another.
Yeah.
And so, and then we also have some personal biases, you know.
Yep.
We see this with our patients. You try one hearing aid, they say, it's okay. You try another, they say, I really like it. But that's not the same across patients.
That's
you know,
right.
There's some personal preference, there's some bias, you know, so there's a lot of factors that go into this. But when it comes to the main players in hearing aids, they used to say the big six, the big five.
We've got 3 that are standouts right now, and that is going to offend some people.
Yeah.
You know, we are live. This is a live streaming event.
Let's get offensive.
Yeah, here we are totally offending someone right now. But the companies that are uniquely good at customization of sound and physical fit, and the companies that are very good at helping us play with desirable signal and noise ratios, trying to get the noise down and the signals up. You know, we like 3 particular companies. They happen to be the 3 largest in the world. So it is, 1, 2, 3. But, those companies are really good. Unfortunately, all 3 of those, their R&D and their main innovations happen across seas. In fact, they're all European companies. So that's a bummer. We are from America here, and there are good American companies. But the 3 best in the world as far as world rankings, those are probably Phonak, Oticon, and Resound. And these are Swiss and Danish companies, and they're great. They do have large locations and headquarters here in the United States where we do our shipping. And so when we have a problem, we don't have to ship to Switzerland or to Denmark or anything. But luckily we have really good representatives that help us understand the products. They teach us great things. They have us sometimes go to special conferences where we can really learn about what are the different nuances that are making this technology better. But boy, those 3 are so competitive with each other as well.
They're really good. Yeah.
And so they're great. Now, other technologies that we would say are very good, would be Starkey. That's a very, very good hearing aid company. Same with Signia, great company, Widex. And that would probably round out the top 6. Those last 3 are excellent, very large companies. We deal with them. We manage patients with them. There are reasons we want to order those type of products for individuals as well. But by and large, we kind of deal with those big 3, the top 3.
And those are the main 6, right? So those are the main 6. Definitely we as a clinic focus on the top 3, which again are the biggest hearing aid companies in the world. But they do all make good products. I believe Signia and Widex are owned by the same company now. Isn't that right? I think they're owned by the same parent company. Mm-hmm. And of course, most of you watching, I shouldn't say none of you, I almost said none of you, but most of you have never heard of these companies because they don't advertise directly to the general public.
That's right.
These are prescription hearing aid companies.
That's right.
And prescription hearing aids have to be dispensed through a licensed audiologist. Mm-hmm. And so you really can't just go and buy them at the store.
That's right.
That's different than these over-the-counter hearing aids. So often I get my patients, they come in and they say, well, I've heard of this one, and this one. And all the hearing aids they've heard of are over-the-counter hearing aids because that's who's advertising direct to patients. So if you're doing research, if you're looking online, if you're going through magazines or watching commercials on TV, almost certainly what you're being advertised are over-the-counter devices, which can be good. And we're not opposed to over-the-counter devices. They've done a great job creating awareness of hearing aids and hearing healthcare. And for people with more mild, even slightly moderate losses, sometimes those can be good. But those are the ones people sometimes hear about.
Right.
They hear about the over-the-counter stuff, Whereas these prescription companies, this Phonak, Resound, Oticon, Starkey, they haven't heard of these.
They market to us, yeah.
Yeah, they market more to the doctors. And so sometimes when we're throwing out these names, people get a look like, well, I've never heard of any of these. Like,
weird names.
Yeah, are these really the good ones? Are these really the good companies?
Yeah.
And they certainly are. The research and development wise, money wise, feature wise, everyone else is copying them.
Yeah.
Even the over-the-counter stuff, they're just trying to mimic what all these big players are doing. If you're looking at getting into the very latest, the very best, you definitely want to stick with these major companies.
Yeah. Should we break down over-the-counter really quick?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So over-the-counter, just in general, means it's not a prescription device. Dr. Whitaker touched on that it's really most effective for people with a mildly moderate. This is usually someone that has hearing loss down to 35 decibels. Even 40 decibels is already pushing the limit of that product to where it might squawk or whistle or feedback and embarrass the person. But over-the-counter devices in their most typical form is usually a little earbud. It can sometimes sit behind. A lot of them just go in the ear. And they're giving mild gain, or in other words, they can give a little bit of help. And for someone with just a little bit of hearing loss that maybe just wants to do a little better with the TV, and that's really the only place they're going to wear it, an over-the-counter device might be an effective solution. And it's a non-prescription device, which means you may come to a doctor, or you may be at a health fair or a warehouse or somewhere, and you get a hearing test, and there's these little symbols that dot the graph, and they kind of shape, and someone may tell you that's your hearing loss across different frequencies or different pitch tones. And so you go, oh, okay, this is my prescription. But what's interesting is that solid and very trustworthy test that you may have taken in a sound-treated room, and you really believe in it, and you know it's a really good prescription test, those results can be loaded into some of the over-the-counter devices, but not many. And so most of the time, the over-the-counter device deals with you and your phone, and you're in a quiet room, and when you hear a sound, you touch the face or the screen of your phone, and it tells the phone that you heard it, and it's creating its own pattern and its own test result for you, your own kind of quasi-prescription, but it's not real accurate is what we found out. When we compare hearing tests that are done by doctors with equipment that's calibrated under proper, kind of a proper environment, the test results are often a little bit different than those test results we see when they just take the little screening in the comfort of their own home.
Yeah, most definitely. The over-the-counter things, by definition, you do not see a doctor. They have to be able to be used just by a patient picking it up off the shelf and using it. So no help from a doctor, no service, no customization, no real intricate or in-depth fitting. It's all kind of generic.
Yeah.
The whole push for these things was a really good thing. Hearing loss is very undertreated and underserved.
Yeah.
And so there was a big push to try to get people to get help.
Well, awareness.
Where these,
and then treatment.
Yeah. So there was a big push to try to get more people to actually wear hearing aids.
Do you think this started from, someone who's uniquely qualified, who's not just duly certified, but has doctorate degrees in both gerontology and the hearing science world? Frank Lynn is an ear, nose, and throat physician.
I was going to say, I know of one guy that was really pushing it for a long time.
Maybe his influence on how is hearing loss affecting us broadly as a society. He's very interested in the society. How is this affecting society and how we get along? But then there's also this side of the personal degradation of the human, how we change as a result of hearing loss. He found some very interesting study results. He started many, many years ago, more than a decade ago, and his primary results were they just shook us. In 2012, when we heard that certain forms of hearing loss, that are just mild, could affect someone's chances of receiving and not participating, but experiencing dementia could be as high as 30 times greater than someone who doesn't have hearing loss, even if it's just mild to moderate. we started to say, wait, mild to moderate loss, which is not a ton of hearing loss, it's not severe, but mild to moderate loss could affect my chances of, experiencing dementia and increasing the prevalence and how that could affect me in my life. That was kind of a nerve-wracking thing. I remember being kind of nervous about it.
Yeah. We were practicing together back in 2012, and we remember hearing that, and since that time, it's really taken off. Most people have heard about that now, this link between hearing loss and dementia. This all came from Dr. Frank Lin out of Johns Hopkins University out in Baltimore. And since that time, he's continued to research that, continued to push this idea that hearing loss is linked to other health conditions.
Yeah.
And hearing loss is important to treat.
So let's get hearing devices on more people.
Let's get them. So he's been pushing that, and the government listened, and the government said, okay, there was a really high bar for what could be considered a hearing aid in this country. To use that label, hearing aid, that was a medical descriptor saying you meet a certain criteria and you can help people hear better.
Yep.
And so with these over-the-counter hearing aids, in a sense, they lowered the bar a little bit. They said, we need to get these to more people. We need to make them available. We need to make them accessible. And so they created this new category that's a little bit lower, not quite as sophisticated, sometimes much less expensive, and hopefully be able to get them on more ears.
Yeah. And I think it's done a pretty good job of awareness. As far as the success of the treatment plan itself, it's been really, really sad. We were hoping, in fact, we bought and purchased as a group different types of, over-the-counter hearing devices, thinking, this is going to be great. Let's get some devices on people that are $500 or $800 instead of $2,000. I mean, literally the third, 25 to 30% of the cost of a normal prescription hearing aid. We thought, man, there's probably going to be people asking for these.
Yeah.
Because it's on the news and people are talking about it. In fact, some of our patients would come in and say, hey, what do you think about these over-the-counter hearing aids? And we were like, hey, you want to try one, And time again, patients would come in and we would have this hope, like, try something a little less expensive, something that doesn't cost so much. And what we found is the devices in their most generic form and in their most kind of basic form were these over-the-counter. And so when a patient would try an over-the-counter device, and then they'd have an opportunity to try a prescription device, they'd come in and say, geez, worth the money. I'm going to pay a little more. This thing is handling background noise 10 times better. My voice sounds more natural. It works with my phone all the time instead of like being so funny. There were just, it was like the difference between a prescription device and this more basic form, this over-the-counter device, was so vast in, 2022? October 2022?
I think that's right.
I think that, or it's 2023. I think it was 2022 when we first had these, and we were so excited. And are they still sitting on our shelf? We bought all this inventory.
We were waiting for the people. We were waiting to distribute them.
It was really frustrating. And then we would go to our conferences and we'd ask our colleagues, like, hey, how's the over-the-counter going? Or we'd ask people that actually created them. These are people doing presentations, and we're thinking, any penetration into the normal public? Like, is the penetration rate better? Are there more people seeking out hearing health as a result of the over-the-counter? And it just hasn't had the effect. It's been a little bit frustrating, I would say. And I've tried them with personal friends. I've got a brother-in-law. I've got some neighbors. It is amazing how frustrating that was. We were really excited. I think the government has been, and I think that has now trickled into a different type of purchase pattern. Is there anything else you want to say about over-the-counter?
Well, yeah, I do. A couple things.
Yeah.
I think the tech is important.
Yeah.
You mentioned, you put someone in an over-the-counter hearing aid, you compare it to a prescription hearing aid, instantly they can tell a difference in the sound quality, in the technology. The tech is definitely a big factor. Most over-the-counter hearing aids are between $100 and $200. The most sold, the most successful, the most distributed.
The ones that people buy.
The cheap ones
are below 300, isn't that right?
Those are the ones people buy. There are over-the-counter hearing aids that are actually pretty expensive. They have some that are $1,200, $1,300, $1,400.
Yeah.
And these are better. The tech in them is better. Even though they're still kind of generic, the tech in them is better, but nobody's buying those. The ones that people are buying are the really inexpensive ones, and they're just not doing well with them. But that brought to my mind that there's a difference between over-the-counter and prescription more than just the technology, more than just the tech.
Right.
Because a huge factor in success with hearing aids is ongoing service and care.
Yeah,
We provide
education.
Education. We provide something called auditory or aural rehab. We counsel every one of our patients about what this process is going to be like.
Yeah.
I can't imagine having a knee surgery and then trying to figure out the therapy all on my own.
Yeah. How do I get that range of motion back?
Am I hurting it? Am I doing too much? Do I need to?
So maybe I shouldn't do it.
Maybe that's bad. You need someone there to coach you through it
Yeah.
and to let you know that pain is okay, and we're going to do it over and over, and we're going to keep moving it rather than.
Such a good point.
So that's what we provide at our clinic is more than just superior tech. We are going to be there to help you along the way, and good audiologists, they'll do this aural rehab and this auditory rehab, and that is so important to success.
Yeah, empowering the patient through education, through know-how, through the idea that, I can be successful. I just needed to do A, B, or C. What a great point. The delivery model is important, but the ongoing service, ongoing counseling, ongoing trust, that you're working with someone who studies different listening environments, so aural rehab, but they also study how does sound affect my brain and how's my brain doing in this process of adapting to this new stimuli, this new signal that's coming in. You kind of need an auditory coach. You kind of need like a little cheerleader in your corner to kind of help you out, right?
Your therapist, your auditory therapist.
Yeah.
I was just at a convention and I heard the president of the American Academy, or the Academy of Doctors of Audiology, ADA they call it. And the president of that organization, that was his whole message, was that audiologists and doctors of audiology need to be doing this aural rehab, and the general public needs to understand that that's important. That a huge part of success is getting the rehab that you need in conjunction with the appropriate technology.
Yeah. Aural rehab takes into account how you're hearing. But aural rehab specifically is looking at how close you are to people, distances. It looks at lighting. It looks at different environments that may have speech babble as background noise, or what if it's road noise as your background noise? And what are the materials that are around you that could affect sound, and how could you best, do your best in those environments? How could you perform your best in each specific environment? Aural rehab takes into all kinds of things as it relates to the environments, the sound that you're wanting. How can you manipulate the sound? What can you do with your communication partner? Should they be sitting somewhere else? Should you go and place yourself in a different location to be successful? From restaurants to vehicle rides, car rides, to family functions, to large auditoriums, to football games. I mean, there are so many different environments that we get to counsel with our patients through and help them be as successful as possible. You don't get any of that, zero, when you buy an over-the-counter device, because there are no professional things we can do with it. It's just sound, and the sound's not that great. Yeah. It's a very, very generic, very basic thing.
Not to mention the fact that when we're counseling with people and they're telling us situations where they've struggled, maybe they say, I was at a restaurant and I seem to be hearing the table behind me even more than the person right in front of me.
Right.
That's a common one, right?
Very
people
common.
say things like that. As audiologists, we can hear that and we can talk about expectations and we can coach them a little bit, but then we can get in and fine tune a lot of these hearing aids.
Right.
We can say, ooh, I've got a solution for you. I've got an idea. I've got an adjustment we can make.
Right.
If you've got an over-the-counter hearing aid, there's no one making adjustments. There's nobody there helping.
And what's unique is our counsel's different for Tom than it is, Sally or Harry, because Tom may have one dead ear and one good ear, or Sally may have two ears that are almost deaf, but their friend Jim or Harry has. Everybody's experience and everybody's performance is very fine-tuned and detailed to their individual abilities. And abilities are tested. We can test someone's ability for sound, but also for speech and processing. And, there's just so many variables that go into helping someone be successful that no wonder, even if you spent $1,500 per ear and now you're up at a lofty $3,000, which people come into our clinic and they have done. They spend between $2,000 and $3,000 on this device that does have a few more features, but who's helping them? Well, it's usually someone on the other end, on the other line of a phone call, or someone that they're zooming in and they're trying to see them through a computer screen and no one's touching their ear or no one's helping them in person. It's this kind of distance learning type of process and counseling process. And that hasn't been very successful because oftentimes the physical fit leads to, issues with how their hearing sounds. And so you really need the person. It's always best to have that service and that counsel and that ability to teach in person where possible. And so some of these models where people say, for example, we hear the word Jabra. I purchased a Jabra device and now I call someone if I need help. Well, it's interesting how many of those Jabra patients are coming in now and they just want traditional care. They want quality care. They want care whenever they want it. They just call us, we get them in. And they want hands-on, they want some help. So
yeah, interesting. Here we are, right? Doing a live stream.
That's right.
Using the tech, reaching out to people. But what we found in practice is that telehealth with audiology is not the ideal. Going into an audiologist, seeing someone face-to-face that can get to know you, your ears, your hearing ability, your specific needs, getting that personalized care with the doctor that is then going to give you ongoing care is so valuable. And I think this deserves a little bit of a discussion because we've talked about over-the-counter hearing aids and we've talked about these prescription hearing aids, but there's this hybrid model going on out there right now that you do find online where prescription hearing aids are being sold and then they're mailed to you. They're not over-the-counter hearing aids. You're paying top dollar for expensive hearing aids.
And you mail them your audiogram.
Yeah,
and they come pre-programmed in the mail.
Yeah. And then there's someone you can call or there's someone you can get online with and chat with. And I'll be honest, I had a patient just the other day saying he was trying that and he liked it. He said, this is actually working for me. I like the hearing aids. They're available. I can talk to them online. But I've seen several of these type of companies over the last few years come and go.
Right.
And I've had other patients that have been left high and dry because they had something that seemed really great and they felt like they were saving a little bit of money on the front end because the service that goes with those hearing aids is reduced. So these companies selling them online, they feel like I can sell them cheaper and then I'll just do a couple Zoom calls, and so I can keep my costs down. And initially, sometimes the patients feel like this might be really good. And then when those companies just go out of business and disappear, that's when they show up at our clinic saying, I need help. I need someone local that can help me with these things.
Another interesting thing is many of the products that are a little bit more sensitive and more detailed with the exact sound that your ear canal deserves require something called calibration. And calibration is kind of a way of saying, let's make sure the microphones on the device are talking very directly to your eardrum based on the curvature of your ear canal and the shape of your canal, maybe the volume of your canal. And how does the tip that we've put in your ear canal, how does it interact with sound? Is it a good tip? Or is it a tip that's allowing too much sound to leak? Is it a tip that's going to cause some squawk or feedback? And so there's a lot of different things that are very, very important as it relates to having someone in person in front of you that can calibrate, because it's very difficult to do that from a distance. And I think that's where a lot of people get into trouble, where it's just not the same.
Yeah, I discourage the telehealth thing. And it can be effective. We've had patients that are snowbirds, and sometimes it's nice to jump on a Zoom call, or sometimes it's nice to be able to connect remotely. Right. But that should kind of be the exception, in my mind. That shouldn't be the rule.
Not the standard care we're looking for, not the high standard that you all deserve. I certainly wouldn't do that with my mother. My father, big shout out to Polly and RL. But, Another
I hope they're
hybrid.
watching. Do you think they're watching?
You know they are.
Polly and Ariel?
Okay,
Thanks
maybe
for
they're not.
watching.
We love you guys. So another thing that we're talking about in hybrid models is the warehouse, Sam's Club, Costco. We hear about that, right?
Oh, all the time. Yeah. And I know lots of people succeed with that model too.
Yeah.
There's people that have gone to Costco and got hearing aids and doing well. And that is wonderful.
So
That is
probably
great.
better service than telehealth.
Step up for sure. You're in an actual store. You're in a brick and mortar store. You're talking to a human being.
Still dealing with technologies that might not be super current, but they're not ancient.
They're not ancient. They're much better than the over-the-counter stuff. Definitely a step up.
Prescription device. You're dealing with someone who's certified and selling hearing aids. Not a doctor, typically. In
Not
fact,
usually,
no,
right?
I mean, we ought to look that up and see what percentage of people that graduate from a doctorate program go and work at a warehouse. You would wonder if it's less than 1%, but I'm sure there's somewhere in the United States that there is.
Yeah, and just to interject, you'd think it might be higher because the optometry clinics are usually staffed by optometrists.
Doctors of optometry.
Doctors. And you'd think over at the hearing aid department, they'd probably have a doctor over there too.
But time and time again, we talk to our colleagues, whether it's in California or whether it's in Utah here or, Wyoming, these areas, they're not doctors. And so that's different. But how, Costco has its place. They know they should be less money because the service model's not there. They know they cannot take out, wax out of an ear. They can't treat certain types of hearing loss if it's a medical type that deals with different surgical procedures and things. So there's certain things that they can't do. So it's not a comprehensive care type clinic. It's not a highest level for hearing health. It's just a hearing aid sales shop, And I like Costco for a lot of reasons because a ton of our patients come from there. And the fact that they were seeking out help, it was non-threatening. Maybe they were buying some of that yummy velvet chocolate cake. Ooh, I love their cake. And maybe they saw the sign that said hearing aids over by the pharmacy and they're buying their lotion or whatever. And they said, crud, maybe I'll just, next time I'm here, I'll have a little hearing screening. We love it when people get their hearing tested, wherever it is, because it's oftentimes the first opportunity for someone to find out in a very non-threatening way, like, oh my goodness, I might have a hearing issue. I might have a substantial loss.
We're in favor of anybody getting help,
That's right,
and
that's
whether
right.
it's at Costco or anywhere else. But you're right, Costco isn't the gold standard. I think people that do the best are usually people that don't need a lot of help.
Yeah.
People that are really comfortable with technology, people that are problem solvers, can figure things out on their own. They don't need a doctor there to help them with a lot of things.
Certainly people that aren't interested in the cutting edge premium technologies.
Yes, yeah.
Costco oftentimes calls their technologies premium technologies because it is new to them.
Sure.
It's new to their network. It's new to their...
And it's a prescription hearing aid?
It's a prescription device. It's brand new to them that year, so it's their newest stuff. But unfortunately, it's never cutting edge. It's never the very latest.
It's never these big manufacturers. Well, I shouldn't say never. Very seldom big manufacturers we talked about.
Yeah.
A couple years old.
Yeah. So there's a place for that. But it's good to know that, okay, so the service model is going to be different in Costco, but a step up from buying it off the internet or buying a device that's an over-the-counter. And then it's not going to be super current technology, but it's definitely going to have some cost to it. That's a little lower, a cost point that's lower. We have in our clinic, and I think other doctors, I hope, have this opportunity to help people, whoever they may be. Some people come and say, hey, performance is my number one. Other people say, I just need to be healthy. I don't need to have the latest and greatest. Is there something that's a little bit less money? And we're very fortunate in our clinic working with the reps that we have for these large manufacturers. All of them have said, hey, if you have someone that is very cost sensitive and they're okay to wear technology that might be last year's or 2 or 3 years old, so the technology is a little older, but still very good, still a prescription device, we can get the price down and help those people out. So we're very proud. We have this Costco match or this warehouse match, kind of a price match situation where we can get really quite good technologies in that Costco, that warehouse type price point.
Yeah, so in other words, price shouldn't be the reason you choose Costco.
That's right.
If you're concerned about price, which many of us are, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
I mean, Eggs are expensive.
Yeah, we all are.
Oh, man, we're going to dye some Easter eggs, and eggs aren't cheap this year, but yeah,
Holy cow.
if you're concerned about cost, that's understandable, but it shouldn't be the reason why you go to Costco. We have devices that are in that very same price point, very similar technology, but then you actually get the care that comes with a comprehensive...
More of the premium care.
Yeah, with the doctor's office.
And most clinics like ours make it a point to maybe go lower and much lower than what the warehouse offers as far as cost. It's important to us that we have a $400 option or a $800 option, something that the warehouse doesn't have, because we see all different types of patients, and it does us as doctors no good at all to see someone and then say, oh, sorry, you don't have enough money to get hearing health. Who wants to practice like that? I know we don't. And so we do everything we can to help patients get the best hearing care they can have, both with service and with the technology that they can afford. And, I'm really proud of that. It's something that I think a lot of our patients appreciate.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. Yeah. And we are passionate about it. We want to help people hear better. That's what we do.
Yep.
That's why we're here. So we've talked a little bit about OTC. We've talked a little bit about some Costco, some hybrid stuff. Maybe, do you think we ought to talk a little bit about some of the higher end stuff that's out there?
Yeah.
I bet there's some people that are saying, okay, what about me? I just want the best.
I'm a high performer.
I just want the best care, and I just want the best device out there. What are some good options there?
When I show up to go out to dinner with my nephew or my grandson that I haven't seen in, 6 months, I have got to be able to connect.
Yeah,
right?
There's lots of people like that, right?
So some of the technologies. Now, this is a term that it's said differently across different manufacturers, but it's essentially this idea that your hearing device can make decisions based on the environment you're in. What kind of noise, how much noise, what kind of speech, who's talking, female, male, child, rate of speech. Are you a fast talker? Are you a slow speech talker? There are devices that literally have artificial intelligence.
I knew you were going there.
I know.
I was going to start doing the robot. Machine learning.
It's cool.
We're going to have a dance-off now?
No.
Artificial
intelligence kind of makes you want to dance a little bit because it's finally a technology that is looking at some, 1.3 million sound bites loaded into your product, and it's accessing what's the closest thing to that, every 5 seconds or whatever. It's doing it all the time. And so we have technologies that are really quite good at cleaning up the speech and reducing the noise. And they are using, what's another buzzword? We've got artificial intelligence.
These are the big buzzwords, deep neural network.
Let's go deep.
Because hearing aids for a long time have had some machine learning. They've noticed, you're in background noise, I'm going to go into a directional mode.
Right.
Or most people don't know that this whole noise canceling, active noise canceling that you use in your headphones when you're on your airplane, that technology came from hearing aids. That was first developed in hearing aids to try to suppress background noise.
That's right.
And now it's widely available in all sorts of headphones and things. But those types of technologies have been around for a long time. And that's a form of machine learning. And you'd say that's artificial intelligence. But the deep neural network is a new way of processing sounds. Computers use deep neural networks.
That's right.
It's trying to mimic more of the way that our brain processes information. It's a much more sophisticated way of processing information. And when it comes to sound processing, these deep neural networks have made a difference.
That's right. In fact, it requires a second chip
in a lot of cases. Yeah.
So instead of having one circuit board, these fancier devices have two, and they're integrated. They're communicating. One manufacturer calls it intelligent focus, which means if there's speech here, it's going to intelligently know that you want to hear this and suppress all around your head, nearly 360 degrees. But then if the speech is here, then it starts to change. And it can learn different voices, different sounds. It's a very interactive type product. So I think that it's really cool, this interaction between deep neural network, artificial intelligence, and then this beam forming where it can bring in sounds in different places. So it's kind of exciting.
It's cool. Yeah, the first two companies to do this were Starkey and Oticon. They started using these deep neural networks to process sound. And it was pretty cool. And it was kind of exciting. And both of these companies are using more of an integrated system where the artificial intelligence is integrated into their hearing aid. And it automatically makes decisions based on your environment and the amount of noise around you. And it's really cool. And then just last year, Phonak came out with their model that was using a little bit of a different approach.
That's right.
Instead of just having it all completely integrated, they were the first one to do the dual chip.
Yep.
So they said, we're going to have one computer chip in our hearing aid dedicated to doing hearing function for the majority of the time. But then we're going to have a second chip that is going to be just our AI chip. And it's going to knock your socks off when you go into background noise because it's going to eliminate, they call it denoising the environment.
It's impressive.
And it's cool. It was based off of this study that was published in Nature where they showed this miraculous ability to be able to suppress background noise. But the battery consumption was a huge problem. It required so much battery power to operate that it was just impossible to put in a tiny hearing aid. So Phonak decided, well, we're going to make a hearing aid then that's a little bit bigger.
Right.
We're going to put a little more battery power. And then this second chip is only going to be used just a small amount of the time. You know, just a fraction of the time.
Difficult environments.
When you're in the most difficult situation, we're going to kick it over to this super chip. And you're gonna do really well in background noise. So that was a different idea. It's no longer this integrated thing. It's this separate AI thing.
Yeah.
And then just here a couple months ago, Resound followed suit a little bit.
Got our mitts on the Resound Vivia.
The Resound Vivia then came out, and it's also using two chips.
Yep.
And it is also one that is not totally integrated. You have to manually go into the AI mode. But when you do, boy,
significant change.
It's pretty good. It's pretty cool.
We're seeing a lot of patients, even people with severe hearing loss, are saying that they are very appreciative of the ability to alter noise so much. So these specialists, this dual chip system, has been probably our favorite thing just as of late. It's been really, really neat. You know, one side note, Resound chose not to go larger. In fact, they're not only the smallest rechargeable hearing device that we can get our hands on, because patients like to look their best, of course, but it's also the smallest device that has a dual chip. So it's become a really popular device in the last 30 days. A lot of people are really excited about it.
We've been excited. It's been cool. Small with a dual chip with the AI. That's been a hot one.
One other technology that is hitting the world, not just hearing aid users, but hitting the auditory world, is this new term, Auracast. Aura, of course, the auricle, your ear. So it represents kind of like this idea to hear. And cast is like broadcasting. It's the signal that can reach and go far and touch many, many people. So Auracast.
Auracast is really cool.
Really cool
stuff. And we are excited. And most of the hearing aid manufacturers have Auracast in their hearing aids, or they're claiming that it's Auracast ready, which means that as soon as Auracast becomes widely available, there'll be some sort of firmware update or some sort of activation process where it suddenly works.
So we know what Bluetooth is.
Yeah.
So Bluetooth is great. It's this mini FM signal. It's smaller. It doesn't take as much battery life, and it's kind of a personalized FM signal around your body.
And just to be clear, Bluetooth is wireless data transmission.
Yeah.
And it was designed originally for things like wireless printers. So you could click something from your phone and print it on your printer.
Right. Or our diagnostic equipment. You could do a test and hit a button and it would print somewhere.
Yeah, there's not even a cable connecting it. But they found out pretty quickly that you could wirelessly transmit audio signals.
Yes, sound.
And that's when Bluetooth took off, because now people are thinking, whoa, wireless headphones, wireless headsets. So now Bluetooth has become synonymous with wireless audio transmission.
I don't want cables.
Yeah,
No
I mean, there's
cords.
Bluetooth printers, there's Bluetooth, but it's really known for audio transmission. But
Auracast, Auracast is this Bluetooth signal, but it's bigger, it's more robust, it's thicker, it's more comprehensive, it sounds better.
It's cool.
It's a cool signal.
It's the updated version of Bluetooth.
The updated version of Bluetooth is what it is, and it's still a low energy option for the hearing aids, so it's not going to just kill your battery or kill your phone. So it's really nice. It is frustrating in that we're so excited about it. The phone has this ability to have Auracast, and your new hearing devices have Auracast ready chips that can receive it, but they're not quite talking fully yet their...
It's coming.
Yeah, it's coming.
It's coming.
I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of 2025
I think so.
we're ready.
I think so.
What we do have is we have these little TV streamers and these little small microphones that are Auracast ready to go, and they are really, really effective. So I would essentially clip a little teeny microphone on my communication partner. Let's say it's Dr. Whitaker here. We put it on him, and he's teaching the Sunday school class at church, and we're good boys. We're going to church, and he's teaching, but I'm having a hard time sometimes because he turns his back and he makes notes on the dry erase board and stuff. And so the next Sunday, I go up to him. I say, "Hey, will you put my special little mic on? It talks right to my hearing devices directly." Makes all the world. It makes a world of difference to these patients. It's so cool. Or maybe we go out to dinner and there's lots of road noise, or maybe or speech babble noise, or maybe we're in a car and there's road noise. Same thing. He can put that mic on, and when he talks, I'm primarily hearing the speech, and the noise is like almost non-existent. So it's really cool.
And not just for you, because one of the coolest things about Auracast is it's a public broadcast, which means I could clip on that mic, but every person in that Sunday school class, as long as they had something that's Auracast compatible, they could all tap in together.
That's right.
So we're going to start seeing this. The Sydney Opera House was the first major big place that is doing public Auracast broadcasts.
Yeah.
So, you know, they're up there on stage. They've got an Auracast microphone, and anyone out in the audience that has an Auracast ready receiver.
Speaking of audience, we need to invite them.
Yes.
If you go to church somewhere, or you go somewhere for movies, or you bring up the word Auracast, we're doing it too.
Yeah.
I know I went to my church house, and I said to the individual that was in charge of the broadcasting and the sound system that comes through the PA and stuff, I said, "Hey, what can we do as audiologists to have this room and this entire building Auracast compatible or ready for Auracast, so that some of the patients that we see, when they sit down in the congregation, they can just touch a button, or they can find their phone and tap on their phone that suggests they're in the right place, and it could just immediately connect their device to the pulpit mic that the person's talking through." How cool would that be? And the individual, you know, that I spoke to at the Church of Jesus Christ, they said, we are really trying to have this ready by the end of the year. And so I think worship sessions and movie theaters and Tuacahn theaters or playhouses, different places, you know,
airports. You're sitting in the airport. You can tap in your hearing aid right to your terminal.
Your gate.
You get all of your own announcements. Yeah, you're sitting
Whitaker,
at a restaurant.
You're late. Come please board.
It's March Madness. You've got a bunch of games on. You say, "I want to tap into TV4.
Oh my goodness.
What you're going to do is pull up your phone, and your phone's going to pull up available public streams, just like you'd look for a Wi-Fi signal. And you'd look for a Bluetooth stream. You choose the one you want. So maybe it'll be TV4, and suddenly you're hearing it. But at the table next to you, they want to listen to TV4 too. They all can too.
Yeah.
Multiple people can all tap in simultaneously.
This isn't just for hearing aids. This will be in AirPods soon. This will be in, I think we have our first Samsung earbuds, insert buds that are Bluetooth, but they're Auracast ready. This technology's coming.
Yeah, it's in Samsung. Samsung's kind of led the charge with this. Their phones, their earbuds, their TVs, they're doing Auracast. As soon as Apple kind of gets on board, I think we're going to really see it take off. And so soon, hopefully, we're going to get AirPods. We're going to get on your iPhones. You're going to be able to find these Auracast broadcasts.
So it's kind of fun. We feel comfortable saying the word Bluetooth, like, oh yeah, I have a Bluetooth phone, or I have a car that has Bluetooth compatibility. But I think the new word coming, that's a better signal than Bluetooth, than the original Bluetooth, is this low energy Auracast Bluetooth signal. I think Auracast is going to be a household name.
It's going to be fun. We're excited about that.
Yeah.
There's lots of technology that we're excited about. You know, I hope we've been able to answer some questions. I hope we've been able to talk about some cool stuff today.
Yeah. I've had a lot of fun.
Me too. I'm looking,
on my first live event.
Me too. I'm looking for questions.
Okay.
Yeah, there isn't one.
No question.
But yeah, we did good, I think.
I'll tell you what, I had a lot of fun. and you can tell that the technologies that we're excited about, we hope you are too. You know, if we've researched things and we've done our job to vet them and to kind of look at all the details that go into different types of hearing loss, different types of anatomy, different types of brain processing of sound, as we do our research as doctors to know what's going to be best for you, I hope you can know that you can trust as you come to groups like ours, other doctors of audiology, that they spend a lot of time caring for you. Even when you're not in front of them, they're doing work to make sure they can care for you.
Yeah, we love it. We're passionate about it. We love talking about it. We love to answer questions about it. So this is probably just the first live stream.
That's right.
So we'd love for you to be able to jump in, ask questions.
That's right.
Yes. Do we have a question?
How do I know if I have hearing loss? Do I need a test, or are there other ways to tell?
Ooh, a good question. How do I know if I have hearing loss? Do I need a hearing test? Are there other ways to tell?
You know, other ways to tell. And first of all, if you're nervous at all, most insurances cover hearing tests.
Get it
hearing
checked.
Screenings, nearly free.
Easy.
Very super easy
Painless.
thing just to get tested, and no medical risk, right?
No,
Painless,
super easy.
super easy. But a sure sign that you're not doing as well as you probably should be is if you're starting to notice that you're a little different than the people you hang out with. For example, you maybe want the TV a little louder. That's a normal one, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe you're saying what more, and someone you love is saying, Mom or Dad, do you realize I just said that to you 2 different times and you said what both times? Have you had your hearing tested? If others are concerned about the way you're hearing and they're having the courage to ask you about it, probably
That's
ought
a
to
good
have
sign.
probably ought to have your hearing checked. Yeah.
If the TV's a little loud, you know, if people that you're around say, man, you like that TV pretty loud,
right.
that's a sign.
You know, sometimes dynamic environments, you notice that you're out to dinner, your wife or your husband seems to be doing fine, but you're not. And you're thinking, boy, they just all laughed at that joke. I totally missed it.
Background noise is the very first place it'll manifest itself.
That's right, because listening in a simple listening environment is pretty simple and easy.
Yeah.
But if you're in a dynamic environment and you notice others are doing okay, but you're not, that's a good one, because you want to be dynamic, right? You want to be able to hang in those environments. So,
I'd say this too, if you're over 55, get it checked.
oh,
Usually
that's an easy
hearing
one.
loss starts to creep in
your
around age
50s.
55.
Yeah.
If you're past 55 and you've never been screened, probably just get it checked.
That's right.
Get a baseline, see where you're at.
Speaking of that, if you're 65 and older and you're about to get your Medicare insurance sent to you and get the card and stuff, one of the requirements for being, you know, kind of welcomed to the Medicare system is that you don't have a hearing screening. You have a comprehensive hearing test.
Yeah.
Oh, good
Yes, so
question.
another question.
Yeah, another question.
We're getting questions.
I know.
Oh, okay.
So that question was, where do you go to get a comprehensive hearing check?
Yeah. So there's online things you can do. You know, there's little generic things you can do. But if you want to get a comprehensive check, go to a doctor of audiology. Yep. A doctor of audiology can do a comprehensive audiologic evaluation, be able to determine if it's just earwax.
Yeah.
If maybe there's some allergies, maybe a little fluid behind your eardrum. Or if there's a more permanent sensory neural inner ear type hearing loss going on.
That's right. But I think that, you know, once you hit 50, a lot of individuals, you know, in their mid 40s and early 50s start to do blood checks, and they start to wonder, am I like my mom or dad? And do I have this ailment, or do I have this condition? Or I sure want to make sure I'm not doing these things like my grandpa did, and I want to have a better quality of life. And one of those things besides your eyes and your blood and your, you know, all those other very important organs and being checked out is having your hearing looked at and having a comprehensive check by a doctor of audiology. If you're over the age of 50, you know, you're in your mid 50s or whatever, I would definitely get it checked. Chances are you're just like the rest of the population. It's a very small percentage of people that have measurable hearing loss at that stage. They don't need to be treated yet, but there might be the beginning stages of just a little slippage in one area. It doesn't mean you need to be treated yet, but it's nice to go, oh, we're going to want to keep an eye on that. And about every 2 to 3 years, let's just have a hearing test. And by the time you hit mid-60s, there are a lot. I mean, the average patient we see is between 65 and 68. So that might be younger than maybe some of you thought, but it is the case that more and more people are coming in their 50s and 60s for sure. Smart.
This was fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining. We have
time.
patients today. We actually do see patients, and we actually probably better get back to the clinic and see some patients.
We may have one more question coming in.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Nope.
We got time for one more?
No, we're good. Okay.
Oh, okay.
All righty.
Have to save it for next time.